Welcome back to another episode of the Kentucky Kernel Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Colton Johnson. Today we'll be diving into Kentucky men's basketball and that only the good and the bad with the loss to Gonzaga, followed by the win against Ole Miss. And just a reminder, all the opinions on this podcast are the speakers and the speaker's own and do not reflect the opinion of the Colonel. Alrighty, let's get it going. Welcome back to another episode of the Kentucky Kernel Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Colton Johnson. I'm joined by three guests today. Do y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Cole Parke, and I'm the sports editor.
I'm Tyler Russell, just a reporter.
And I'm Ali Cetinok, and I'm assistant sports reporter or editor.
Attaboy.
There you go.
Good and bad for Kentucky men's basketball this week. Started off bad. Cole, you were in Rep Arena, Gonzaga, 89-85 loss. What'd you see?
It was history for Kentucky, that was for sure. First time ever since Rep Arena opened, the Cats have lost 3 straight home games. It was a tough one, and at the end of the day, it came down to defense. Kentucky, when it mattered, could not stop Gonzaga, and a lot of that was Gonzaga's Graham Ike. He ended up fouling out at the end there, but finished with 23 points down low. I mean, he was just absolutely a beast in that game, and it just wasn't going for Kentucky. I mean, they even finished the game 5 for 6, but also didn't have a field goal in the last 3 minutes. So, You know, it's tough to win games when you're not putting up shots in the last 3 minutes, and you know, some might say only losing by 4 in that scenario is not too bad, but on the other hand, it was your third straight loss at home against a team who, prior to this game, was not projected into the NCAA tournament. Now they are back in that conversation. But again, this is a team in Gonzaga who, if they lose their next game, they're right back out of the tournament. So it's not a good loss by any stretch of the imagination. It was Gonzaga's first Quadrant 1 win, I think, of the season, and just a really, really bad one for Kentucky.
And the thing about it is this is not the Gonzaga team of the last few years either. This is not a really good team, as you just called about. And the thing that kind of gets to me is kind of the same old story with every single loss. A slow start, which we can talk about why those slow starts happen to begin with. But I just kind of want to talk about that. It wasn't the last play, but it was the play that they should have, either tied the game or taken the lead with the failed lob from Reed, which I don't know why.
Call that a lob? Basically?
I don't know why they went with that. I don't know. It says, I think post-game they said something like Reeves' 3 was going to be the second option if that wasn't there.
That was the first option.
Yeah, I don't know why that wasn't the option to begin with, but it just comes down to this whole point of what we were seeing this season, that we can't trust Kentucky in these games just simply off defensive breakdowns. They can't guard anybody. You can score 105 points a game, but you have to guard the ball, and that's the problem with this Kentucky team and why I have trust issues with them. And the Gonzaga game just brought it all together to why this team maybe is not where they're supposed to be right now.
I mean, absolutely. By this year's standards, 85 doesn't look like a lot of points, but in the grand scheme of college basketball, 85 is a lot of points to score.
Yes.
And to score 85 at home and lose is unreal. Like, that just shouldn't happen.
I want to I want to talk more about Mr. Ike. Typically, when Kentucky gets in these like high-scoring battles, they can't play defense in the sense, but they give up these open threes. But if you look at the stat sheet, threes were not the issue with this Gonzaga team.
Mm-mm.
They just got bullied down low, and I was watching the game. You're like, dang, they don't have an answer for Ike. But when they subbed him out, Braden Huff came in and was doing the same stuff. So going forward, is down low going to be that much of an issue for Kentucky?
I think it just depends. The problem is Kentucky's bigs have been just so unbelievably inconsistent. And we'll talk about it when we get to the Ole Miss game in a little bit, but the big played good in that game. Very solid. Actually made history we'll talk about later. But in this game, man, it was like the wind could blow them over at that point. I mean, they were all 3 of them were just not playing good basketball. And it's one thing to have a player have an off night, but to have all 3 players the same position off on the same day you don't have Trey Mitchell, like it can't happen. It simply cannot happen, and it's almost like laughable that it did happen in this way. I mean, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a sequence there towards the end where Gonzaga scored on the same play, like multiple times in a row, the exact same play. Like, how do you let that happen? How do you not adjust to that?
Coaching.
It also does seem like, I mean, after Kentucky lost the Kansas game, you see a lot of people like on social media saying, "Oh, if we had one of our 7-footers, we would have won that game." When it comes down to the Hunter Dickinson, well, it's almost another situation. I'm not saying Graham Ike is like Hunter Dickinson, but when you take someone who primarily scores a lot of points on you in that big position and you have the same thing that happened to you against Kansas, another opportunity against Gonzaga, and you still lose that way with 3 people or rotate between. It's coaching, I believe.
It's also worth mentioning that Kentucky scored just 32 in the first half there. Reed Shepherd looked nice with 21 points in the box score,
in the second half.
you know what his
But
first
he had
half total
0
was?
points in
0.
the first half. And I actually had, I wouldn't say argument, but I had a discussion with someone from London, Kentucky the other day, and they were saying, you know, I jokingly said, like, oh, Reed Shepherd kind of messed up at the end, which he did. Let's just say it how it is. He did. And they were like, oh, he was leading scorer last game. That's perfectly fine. But if you're having 0 points in the first half, which I said it on the podcast a few weeks ago, which this is kind of a trend with Reed, he can pop off for 25 points, but that's only going to be maybe in the second half. He'll go a half or even a game where he has only 2 points, 3
He
points.
had a little like Michael Jordan run there where he scored like 10 straight, and that got him up there pretty high. But in the first half, he was a non-factor. And I will agree with you. It was a bad play call from the beginning with that lob thrown way too short.
Yeah.
Way too
I'm
short.
pretty sure it was to Adu, right? And he
Yeah, it was
pointed up at the end, saying like, you gotta
It
put
didn't even
that up there.
get close to him.
I'm not a tall guy, but I think I could have got that lob if I really tried.
Yeah.
And it comes back to the point where I don't know why you're just not going to Reeves for the 3. If he misses the 3, you have to basically do what you're doing in the lob, is getting
That's
up
true.
and getting
That's a
the
good
ball
point.
to begin with. So I don't know why you, one, make it harder, the harder play of the 2, and one, it's Reeves.
Also, on Reeves' like intentional missed free throw, that was like one of the worst attempted missed free throws I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Like that's the worst way to miss
And
a free throw.
I was joking at the time of the game, and I was watching the game. I was like, can Reeves even know how to miss a free throw?
Just hit it straight on the front of the rim and get it bounced back to you. Like
I thought he was going to make it on accident, just being Reeves.
Calipari even said this afterwards. Like he said, Reeves was like, "Yeah, they boxed me out." He's like, "I told you they were going to. Like, what did you think they were gonna do?"
I don't really remember how many. I don't really even know if there was one of the 3 7-footers in there. But from my opinion, I think if you need a rebound, you should
Put all 3 of them in there.
Exactly.
See
Yeah.
what happens.
I don't know why. And it's Adu. Like, Adu's probably the most explosive guy on the roster, but why is he the guy there to get the ball?
Then
You
again,
have
I don't
3
know.
7-footers.
Seeing some of the things I've seen, I don't know that I trust Ugana to get a law.
No,
Sometimes.
well, we can talk about the inconsistencies of Ugo, and you know how I feel about some of those because
Not
I don't
even-
shut up to you during games, but very definition of inconsistent. But he
wanna-
was on the good side in the Ole Miss game.
I want to touch on a soundbite I saw from Cal after the game. He said that this team lost the game in the first half.
Yep.
Yeah.
Being down 10, you could, in retrospect, say that. But with the team that came back and took a lead, what are y'all's thoughts on Cal saying that it was lost in the first half when Kentucky had a lead after the fact?
I think it's just false, simply just not true. I mean, he had every opportunity to win that game, and they just didn't execute correctly.
I think that when I saw it happening in real time, I did think this team lost the game in the first half. When they went into halftime trailing by double digits, I was like, "That's it.
They very
They're toast."
rarely are able to
Gonzaga is
build
now
off that.
Gonzaga is now 160-0 under Mark Few when leading by 10 or more at halftime,
Yep.
which is an insane stat. But
That is pretty wild.
I thought that they did lose it there, but like you kind of said there, it's not like it's not like it was like Tennessee in the second half where they just couldn't get over that hump that they got themselves in the beginning. They tied
They
the game.
did get over that hump.
They did get over that hump. They were up there, and then
Well,
they
they were
choked it
winning.
away. So they were winning. So it's
Yeah.
like I could understand if they just never got over that. Like they did outscore Gonzaga in the second half, but like, you had the lead and you blew it. That's not losing the game in the first half. It's only losing the game in the first half. You never get over that hump.
True.
And it was, I'm looking here at the play-by-play. I'm trying to see. It was a tie game with less than 4 minutes to go. That's the definition of you should be
Kind of
able
reminds
to.
you of the Kansas game a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we can talk about Kansas too. It's kind of interesting looking at the Kansas game, talking about. I still personally think Kentucky would beat Kansas if they played right now, just because Kansas just has zero depth right now.
Yeah, Kansas has 4 players
Yeah.
on their roster,
Yeah.
and
And
I think
Furphy's
very
come
much
back
so
to
exciting.
earth. It's no longer for. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Kentucky, not Kansas.
Yeah. So with the questionable big play in Kentucky, they talked about this small ball thing, transitioning into the Ole Miss game. With that, not as I didn't see it as much, but it was a bit of a factor with Trey playing the 5 and stuff like that. Cole, you were also there.
I'm
What did you
everywhere.
see with the Rebels in Rupp Arena?
So I have mixed opinions on this because certainly holding a team to 63, that's the lowest they've held a team to at home since I believe it was it was back in November. I know that for sure. I know they held Commerce to less and New Mexico State to less, but there's one team after that they held to less as well.
I'm going to say Stonehill?
Yeah, I think Stonehill is right. But other than that, they've never held a team to 63 at home since those kind of games, like in the 60s period since those games, which is actually insane to think about because they've played some real duds in that time.
That's like 13 points less than what Ole Miss averaged a game going into.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what happens when Onyenso takes 20 points off the board.
I mean,
just
that's true.
by himself.
Onyenso, I mean, like we just talked about, he made history. He tied David Robinson with the record for most single-game blocks inside Rupp Arena, second all-time in program history to Nerlens Noel, with 10 blocks. He was adamant that it was 11, but they gave him 10 blocks.
I think it was 11 too, and
I
it
think
really
it
could have been
probably
12, but he got caught a foul on
but
at the end of the game.
They gave him 10, so he tied the record with David Robinson inside Rupp Arena, and he's second to Nerlens Noel in program history. So, I mean, that was massive. I do think there was certainly something with Ole Miss shooting 22% from beyond the arc, and let's just say that while it was better, Kentucky's three-point defense wasn't hold a team to 22% good. There were still a few wide-open shots they were missing.
Very wide open.
But at the same time, holding a team to 63 is huge, and it was the first time all season long Kentucky's had its entire roster healthy. That lasted for about a half, which was nice. With Trey Mitchell going to go get x-rays on his shoulder at the moment. We don't know an update on that yet, but it seemed to work better. And definitely there was, by the end of it, it looks like they played a lot of guys, but they definitely had a much tighter rotation this time. I mean, you saw Onyenso play a lot more than Bradshaw did. Z didn't get in at all. Bradshaw only ended up playing 13 minutes in the game, and I don't think he checked in till like midway through it either. So it was definitely a much tighter rotation, which was a little bit nicer to see. I think if you're Kentucky, you want to see some more consistency, especially, it was really nice to like highlight the depth when you're winning by 30 points. But when you're not, it's like, all right, can we get this clown show on the road and just get a couple guys in the court? But it was a much better performance, a 12-point win, and one that Kentucky desperately needed going into Auburn.
Yeah, I'm a little I don't really know what to think about the Ole Miss game simply because we don't know how good Ole Miss really is this year. They're maybe top 50, top 40 team in all of college basketball, but they're a bubble team right now. Mm-hmm. So you can't really tell.
Like Florida. I would compare them to Florida.
I'd say Florida's a little better.
I'd say they're better.
I'd say Florida's better just off their resume and who they've beat. I mean, they just embarrassed the team that Kentucky's going to have to play up next. But I don't really know how to think about the Kentucky game because the first five to hit the floor was just not what any of the fans, what anyone expected to see or wanted to see, but it worked. Justin Edwards, he came out, scored the first 7 points for Kentucky. That starting lineup, which has been under so much scrutiny, actually paid off against Ole Miss, I think, and they had a good start. And I'm just going to say that this score, like, it's not close, it's not a battering, but the game never felt in danger for Kentucky.
I would agree with that. I feel like Kentucky had it control the whole time.
Yes, which is a good sign because when was the last time you watched a Kentucky game and felt comfortable with the result during the entire game?
First half.
Yeah.
29 in the first half.
They went on like a 20 to 4 run or something like that. So, like, you never felt Ole Miss was threatening. They kind of closed the gap a little bit towards the end, but that was garbage time. But I think it was a quality win, but it just questions about the actual opponent rather than Kentucky.
Just want to touch on what you said when you say you never know what to expect with this Kentucky team. I mean, you slaughter Vanderbilt. That's the turnaround. All right, it's Vanderbilt. You don't know what to expect, and then you lose to Gonzaga at home. And then you beat up Ole Miss pretty well. You played good, and then next up you have Auburn on the road. And
then LSU on the road.
Exactly. So now it's, again, at the point where this is the turnaround. That's the game that they needed, and then the next game it's just a letdown. So
and kind of going to that uncertainty, and I felt that a lot of this result from Ole Miss came just Trey Mitchell being back. I think
agree.
he provides this comfort and this safety blanket to the whole team. He only had 5 points, but you can't tell me that he didn't play a huge role in that game just simply by being on the court. And now he's injured. Now we don't know where he's coming back.
Or the severity.
Yeah. And we're going to they're going to have to play a tough Auburn team with maybe without Trey again. So that goes back to this uncertainty of, like, we don't know what type of team we're going to see, especially when probably their biggest piece that glues the team together and provides comfort for the whole team might not be there.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. That was something that actually Chris Beard, of all people, talked about post-game. They kind of rushed Ole Miss's post-game a little bit. They said there was, like, some bad weather. They wanted to get out of here. But that's what he said. You know, obviously he said Trey Mitchell's a really good player for them. And he's like, and it's not always on the box score. It's just what he brings to that team. He's a glue guy. He kind of keeps people together. He's a good leader on the court. And he doesn't have to be popping up the box.
Most games, he's the oldest guy on the court.
Agree, and I think that, you know, if Chris Beard can see that, then everyone else can see that too.
Was it Chris Beard who said that he was one of the best players in the country? I know someone said that in a press conference when talking about Trey Mitchell. I don't remember who it was.
I don't remember who said that, but I do
did
remember
say
another
that.
coach saying he's one of the best in the country. But it is worrying, though, that out of all the people that it was so good to have him back, he's right back out.
Probably
and
the
potentially hurt.
worst option to have out right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one you hate to
Especially
see.
with that small ball philosophy they're trying to go back to. I wanted to talk about another guy who had the first 7 points for Kentucky last night.
Yep.
Justin Edwards, a guy who, I mean, we're not going to mince words here, has not met the expectations. He's been doing better, but I would still say he's in the column that has not met expectations that he's, you know, beholden upon us. With 12 points, you know, set the first 7, kind of slowed down after that. For y'all, what does he have to do to kind of get to that threshold with these upcoming Auburn and Florida games?
I think just keeping it up right now. I mean, he had 17 against Vanderbilt, did he? And he could have had 10 against. He was a made 3-pointer away from having 10 against Gonzaga, and then he had 12 against Ole Miss. I think he's showing improvement each game, and those 7 points that he had to start the game, those were not easy points either. It wasn't like just layups that he was scoring. I think. Yes, where it was good to see him kind of flex a little bit on the crowd and DJ come and give him
personality.
hugs. Yes, and I want to see more from that. I'd say he just needs to play more confidence, I think it's a lot to do where his confidence levels is at the moment, and I think when he actually wants to play his game, you can see flashes. You can see why he was the player that everyone expected him to be. So I think it's just him keeping it up, not get over his head, but where you're going, just continue where you're going, I think.
You asked me what I think he needs to do to get over that hump. I kind of agree with Taylor. I think exactly what he's already doing. I would even say, you know, he could go out and just absolutely crap the bed next time, but I would say what he's doing now is exactly what I want to see from him. Because sure, 12 points doesn't jump off the box score, but you've got roughly every game you can have 4 or 5 people scoring in double figures. You don't need him to be dropping 30. He doesn't need to do that. The point is, when Justin Edwards was on the court against Ole Miss, he made the team better. And you look at previous games this season where he made them noticeably worse, he made them better. Not only did he get those first 7 points and some tough buckets at that, he was playing some defense.
Yeah.
You know, he was doing what he needed to do, and he scored those first 7, and it's like, yeah, well, he scored the 7. He only scored 5 more for the rest of the game. Okay, he didn't need to score all those points after. And that's something that they talked about after Vanderbilt when he finally got a career high. Is the thing that he discussed that Calipari's talking to him. He's like, you don't need to dig yourself out of a hole. You don't need to do that. Don't try to put the team on your shoulders because it's not working. Just play a team basketball. So he scored the first 7 points because he needed to.
Yeah.
He scored the next 5 because he was able to.
Yeah.
He kind of fed everyone else. I mean, he had 2 rebounds. That's not a lot, but those rebounds mattered. Only had 2 fouls and 2 turnovers in a game where Kentucky had 15. Look at his plus-minus. He was a plus 12. That's the 3rd highest on the entire team. And noticeably, that's higher than Antonio. That's higher than Trey. That's higher than Ugana, who had the 10 blocks. It was 3rd to only, believe it or not, Aaron Bradshaw and Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
And a lot of that Reed was inflated by the second half there. So being a plus 12 for Justin Edwards, that's a miracle in my eyes compared to where we were earlier in the season.
And I think it shows just how good he actually is on. I think defensively, he has the most active hands on the whole entire roster. I think defensively, besides maybe Jordan Burks, which we talk about all the time, that we think he's a great, kind of like how Rob Dillingham is a spark on offense. Jordan sometimes is a spark on defense. But Justin Edwards, you know, when we talk about this team breaking down defensively all the time and having, like, I think 125th KenPom defensive efficiency in the country right now, like, That's not because
they
of
jumped
Justin.
up 20 spots, like 103 or something like that.
Oh, great, 103
really.
defensive efficiency, but they're not down there because of Justin Edwards.
No.
I'll tell you that right
And
now.
I think what's more important than his 12 points necessarily is 4 for 7, 0 for 1, 4 for 5. That means that while he wasn't perfect, he wasn't taking stupid shots. He missed one 3-pointer that he probably should have made, and when he wasn't like just wide. If he was wide open again, I would say shoot it anyway. But he didn't attempt to make any stupid threes after that. He wasn't like he tried to force the issue. He missed one. He's like, all right, got it. Not on today. Gonna give it to who's on. He made smart shots. He missed a couple. He missed 3 2-point field goals, but 4 for 7 is a good figure.
Yeah.
4 for 5 from the free throw line. Obviously you don't want to miss any free throws, but 4 for 5, that's for Kentucky. I'll take it.
And I've always thought that Justin Edwards, you kind of talk about his shot selection there. He doesn't do like stuff where you say, oh, that's stupid. Why'd you do that? A lot of the criticism wasn't because he was messing up all the time. It was because he just wasn't really doing anything rather than him, having unnecessary turnovers.
I have
which
seen
he
some like really bad shot selection from him.
Well,
though, in the
I
past.
think
But
a
lately
lot
I
of the shots that he was taking back were decent shots. They just weren't dropping, so you'd think that was a bad shot, which if any other day that would have fallen, I think.
I do want
A
to
lot of those.
touch on how we talk a lot about how Kentucky or Cal rotates the lineups, subs guys in and out. Someone makes a mistake, someone else goes in. But one thing that I've noticed about Cal and Justin Edwards is that he is sticking with him, and he's sticking to his word, too, because he says that he's going to stick with him. And he always, just like, whether he's starting, whether he has him involved in the rotation, Cal truly sees something in him. I'm not going to say that we don't see, because everyone knows his potential, and everyone knows that coming in he was a projected lottery pick, but everyone knows that the potential that he has, and Cal is truly sticking with him, which is actually really good to see, considering, like I said, a lot of guys he sticks with him, but you make a mistake and you're out. It's kind of that.
He's kind of like a Rob Dillingham. He kind of has a leash
Yeah.
that he's allowed to kind of, I want to say mess up, but make mistakes.
freedom.
Yeah, freedom, exactly.
Freedom. That's a good word for it.
Looking forward, with the season that Kentucky's had, when you have these opportunities to have a crack at the teams that are in the SEC title race, you got to take advantage of them, especially, with the doubts. They're going to have that shot. They take on the 8-3 Auburn Tigers in the conference.
number 13 in the country.
Yep.
They're legit.
Undefeated at home.
They're legit. Other than Mississippi State, somehow that's their kryptonite. But what are y'all looking at for that game?
I think it's honestly confusing to me. I'm not sure what to think, because Auburn is another one kind of like Gonzaga that they went so long without even getting a single Quadrant 1 win, and that led to some interesting losses. But they finally got that Quadrant 1 win, and I know they did just get blurred by Florida, but they also just absolutely blurred number 16 Alabama as well. So I think that it's tough. It's one that you have to take seriously. I mean, it's a ranked matchup, so it's going to be a good game. Auburn's undefeated at home. It's not one you can take lightly, but it's also one that I think is more winnable than I think some people are giving it credit for. Auburn Arena is going to be brutal. Kentucky found that out 2 years ago when they went there. They lost. But I think Kentucky is capable of winning this game. Whether or not they will, we'll discuss that in predictions. But I think they're capable of winning this game, and they, in my opinion, need to win this game as another kind of that, like, we're okay, like this season is there's still time, we're fine. If you lose this game, there's definitely, the concerns are all back right all over again.
Yeah. I think Auburn just came off probably one of the most embarrassing losses in the past few years for Auburn, and it's kind of unlucky for Kentucky is that they have to catch them after being absolutely embarrassed by Florida. It's going to be at Neville Arena. It's going to be rowdy, but for some reason, to me, something's screaming that Kentucky's able to win this game. I'm not going to give my prediction just yet, but I do think Kentucky should get the job done against Auburn, and it's going to be a great win for Kentucky too. Everyone's going to be saying the resume win there is going to be a big deal, and Auburn's a hard place to win, and if Kentucky can prove that, hey, we are still the guys that everyone thought we were by winning in Auburn, that's going to be huge for them, and it's going to be huge for them going forward to the rest of the season too.
Looking onto the next game, they will be taking on the LSU Tigers in the Pete Maravich Center. Now
That's LSU.
I watched this team go toe-to-toe with Alabama for the first I'll give you a little bit of leeway. They did lose it in the last 8 minutes. Alabama started sinking the threes like they usually do. That's just how Alabama is. Now, I'm going to let y'all dive in on this one, but I think that should be must-win territory for the Cats.
I think
Let's start off with a shout-out to Pistol Pete, though.
Hey,
Love the name there. This is a team that's 500 right now. They're
Yeah.
12-12, 4-7 in the SEC. I get it's a road game. It's probably going to be a tough place to play. I'm sure LSU fans are going to pack it out. It's a big game, having Kentucky come to town. But if you lose this game, that's a disaster. It's not like Vandy level, not even close.
it's close.
But it's a disaster.
No,
In
I'd
retrospect,
argue
the Texas A&M
LSU's
one's
down
getting
there.
kind of bad too. But that's one you cannot lose. You cannot lose at LSU. I will say you can lose at Auburn and be fine. You
Yeah.
cannot lose at LSU.
Well, Auburn's favored. They have an 82% chance to win the
Yes.
game on ESPN. But, LSU has lost 6 of its last 7. They're going to lose at South Carolina this weekend. So they're going to be coming off 4 straight losses. It's going to be a Tuesday night,
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
9
Still,
p.m. That's gonna be
9
miserable for me.
p.m.
I'll be there.
atrocious.
It's going to be 10 p.m. here then, isn't it?
I'll be there.
It's going to be horrible. I can't wait
ESPN says that their matchup predictor, ESPN, says that LSU has a 41.4% chance to win. Kentucky's is 58.6%.
Simply
that's also
put,
biased
LSU is
because
not
Kentucky
a good
just
team.
lost three straight
Yeah.
home games. They'll go up. If they play even close with Auburn, they'll go up.
Even as
I
of
feel
right
like.
now, I think that only Kentucky having a 58% chance to win, that should at least be mid-70s right now.
And, LSU's, their only recent win is against a struggling Arkansas team who
Yeah,
I
it's-
personally think's head coach is 30 seconds away from leaving Fayetteville.
They did beat Ole Miss though.
Okay, like I just said earlier, Ole Miss, you can't use Ole Miss as a measuring stick against anybody because no one really knows if they're good or
They
not.
played good against South Carolina.
They played close at
It's kinda
Florida.
weird.
At
Started
South Carolina,
13-0 in non-conference.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then that's where the uncertainty of, all right, how good are
But
they? And then you
This
hit
is an
conference
LSU
play.
team that lost to Nichols State.
Yes. To me personally, LSU is down there with Mizzou and Vandy at the bottom of the barrel of the SEC.
Well, if you
State's
look
a
at the standings, they
powerhouse.
are down there with Missouri, Vandy, and Arkansas. They're the bottom 4.
Arkansas, yeah.
That is
Arkansas,
your
to
Wednesday
me,
slate
can
for the SEC tournament.
Yes. To me, Arkansas can lose by 30 to anybody, but I still think they can beat anyone. I think Arkansas is weird. I think that Duke game is still so fresh in my mind that I still kind of trust Arkansas to maybe beat someone they're not supposed to. But LSU is simply not good.
Shout out to Missouri, though. 0-11 in the SEC.
Yeah, Missouri's not even a
That's-
thought in my eyes,
that's
in my
impressive.
mind right now. I
That is
think
impressive.
Missouri, you kind of have to be. It's harder to be that bad than
It is
being
to be
like
good.
Ole Miss right now. I think.
I agree.
I think Missouri's not even playing the same sport as everybody else. Vanderbilt, though, they got that's the worst buzzer beater I've ever seen
2-9
in my
SEC.
life.
Missouri
And
has 6 stadiums.
did you? I see they only had 5,000 people at their stadium for the
Yeah,
last
it was
game too.
bleak.
Vanderbilt
It was
is in a
bleak.
bad spot. LSU's in a bad spot. Missouri's in a bad spot. And realistically, if LSU, like you just said, Cole, if Kentucky doesn't win in Baton Rouge, that's alarm bell all over the place. That's horrible.
That's a
horrible.
disaster.
You
It's an
can't. You
absolute
can't
disaster.
lose to LSU and be considered to go on a
Okay.
deep run in March.
Considered in
For
a good
anything,
spot.
for
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Kentucky beat Ole Miss by 12. LSU's equivalent was beating North Florida by 12.
Yeah.
It's a powerhouse.
This is the team you're
Ospreys.
talking
Go
about.
Ospreys, yeah.
Ospreys. Shout out Ospreys.
No. Getting into the official predictions, we're going to start with the game against the Tigers. Mr. Cole, you want to start us off? What are you thinking for that one?
I got to go with
Which
my gut
Tigers?
Yeah.
and
which-
my
Auburn?
Oh, they're both Tigers, aren't they?
And you said it like what's
You
his
said it
name?
like
Coach
LSU.
O.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Coach O.
Auburn.
Auburn.
Auburn, yes.
Going with my gut, I don't know. It might not be the smartest pick, but going with my gut, just a gut feeling, I'm picking Kentucky. I think Kentucky will get it done. Maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking since I'm going down there, but
I'm going there with you.
You're going there with me.
Yeah.
I didn't say you
Hey,
weren't.
we're
We're
going,
going
down there.
and then I'm going to LSU, but I'm picking Kentucky.
I'm going with Auburn. I mean, just seeing Kentucky collapse, quote unquote collapse, just not perform that well on the road, and then not trying to knock anyone, but people do say that they play better. Everyone plays better against Kentucky, and I do think that Auburn at home in the crowd, it's just I think it's gonna be a disaster.
Oh, disaster.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's
I'm
gonna be
kind of
good.
glad you said that
I don't think
because
it's gonna
in
be
my
good.
head I was thinking we can't all pick Kentucky to win because they're going to lose if that happens. That's what always happens. Whenever we pick Kentucky all to win, they lose. I'm with Cole on this. I think, you've had this bad stretch before this Ole Miss game, and I said last night on Twitter that I saw that the Kernel Sports tweeted it or quoted my tweet, and it said,
That's me.
basically, if you're going to respond one way to these losses, it's that. And I think they have to build off that. And if they don't build off that, we're going to have some serious questions. So my prediction, I think Kentucky wins by 2 possessions.
I think it's gonna be a clone of the South Carolina game.
I think
I think South Carolina is a better team than Auburn.
I would agree with that.
I think
like
Auburn,
that vibe where you
I would
go on the road.
unironically
Hey,
agree with that.
and didn't Pearl say that he's scared to play Kentucky?
Yeah, he said he's not sure.
I don't know if that's mind games or whatever that is, but I mean, if your head coach is saying that he doesn't see them, I don't know why he said that.
I'm
I
just
don't
gonna
know.
drop the hottest take. South Carolina might be the best team in the SEC.
I think they.
I
Well,
think they
I mean,
are.
the
We'll really
standings
Find out
show that.
tonight. We'll see tonight. They're at Auburn tonight.
Oh, they
I
are.
think. Yeah.
I thought
aren't they?
South Carolina
I'm gonna be
plays.
watching that.
I know.
Doesn't South Carolina? Yeah. Let's look. Who do South Carolina?
Yeah, they're at
play?
Auburn tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be.
Okay.
I think. Okay, let me just. I guess my prediction is this: if South Carolina absolutely destroys Auburn tonight, I think Kentucky wins.
I'm gonna go with along the lines of, I think it'll be a good game. I think it's one of those where it'll be a loss for Kentucky, but it'll be like one of those losses that they take a lot away from, and that there's a lot of positives from.
Yeah, like Kansas. And
Yeah,
then
something in that sense. But moving on to the other Tigers, we're running out of time here, and something that should be fairly unanimous. Cole, what are you thinking about down in Baton Rouge?
I would hope for John Calipari's sake that it's Kentucky. I'm taking Kentucky in the Pistol Pete Center. Let's go.
Kentucky by 10 plus,
10
15
plus.
plus. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think they going to not just win, but they have to win by a lot. It can't be one of these scrappy wins that you barely win the game by.
That's what they did against Arkansas.
No,
That was-
it can't be a repeat of the Arkansas game.
Yeah.
If they are going to win against LSU, it needs to be a solid win that is never in doubt.
Honestly, you kind of could compare it, not the teams, but like the vibe of going to Arkansas, bottom of the SEC, close,
I
going
think
to
it's
LSU,
more
close to the
Vanderbilt
bottom
than
of the-
Arkansas. The Vanderbilt game, I thought there's
feel like
no
LSU will
way.
still
I
at
don't wanna-
least
I
have
don't
some
want to
fans
discredit
there.
the Duke game, but I feel like you're overstating how Arkansas is bad. They're bad.
To me, I remember them beating a top 10 team. So I just think
so did
that
Georgia
if
Tech,
they
though.
So
if
did
they
Syracuse.
want
So
Like,
did
Georgia
Georgia
Tech.
Tech.
Syracuse,
twice.
So
don't
did
get on
Syracuse.
Syracuse
So
now.
did
I think
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Georgia
I think
Tech beat North
Syracuse is
Carolina
actually.
and Duke in the
Whoa,
same
whoa!
season,
Don't
so,
get me all defensive about a team I'm not even a
Wait.
fan of. But I think
Okay,
Syracuse is
okay.
actually cooking up there.
We could be
Boston
here all
College beat
night.
Syracuse.
We could be here all night.
No one
talking-
cares, Cole.
Nobody cares about Boston College.
UNC Wilmington Beacon.
Okay.
Okay.
We could be here all night talking about all the upsets that have happened all the time this year. Cole, Ali, y'all are hitting the road. Y'all be down there. Well, you'll be down there for the Auburn game, right?
For Auburn,
It'll
I'll be
just
there for
you.
both.
What a road trip. That's going to be some fun driving. Your car's going to be
Well, Cole's not just going there; he's also going to Troy, Alabama.
Yeah,
jeez.
we got a.
So he has to
award
go
ceremony.
to Alabama, to Louisiana, back to Alabama.
Yes.
Well,
That's
be
gonna
safe
fun.
in doing that. We'll get your input when you get back. I want to thank all y'all for coming on. Had a good time.
Glad
It's
to be
always
here.
a
Do we have
great
any
time.
updated standings on our predictions?
No.
We're going to have to go back and listen and get
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
back
someone
to
else
back.
can do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear my Kentucky football predictions from the back.
I'm
in
not
the day.
basketball, just basketball.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Kentucky Kernel Sports Podcast. We hope you tune back in next week. We'll be talking more basketball and everything else. If you want anything else from the Kernel, make sure to go to kykernel.com or KYKernel Sports on Twitter or X. Until then, we'll see you next time.